Listening Fill in the Blanks.
Let's start.
Climbing purists aside, it was not until the 1970s that the general tide began to turn against bolting and pitons. The USA, and much of the Western world, was waking up to the damage it had been causing to the planet, and environmentalist campaigns and new government policies were becoming widespread. This new awareness and sensitivity to environmental issues spilled over into the rock climbing community. As a result, a stripped-down style of rock climbing known as clean climbing became widely adopted. Clean climbing helped preserve rock faces and, compared with older approaches, it was much simpler to practice. This was partly due to the hallmark of clean climbing, the use of nuts, which were favored over bolts because they could be placed into the rock wall with one hand while climbers maintained their grip on the rock with the other.
An eccentric citizen of communist Hungary, he had written a book called Bring Up Genius, and one of his favorite sayings was, "Geniuses are made, not born." An expert on the theory of chess, he proceeded to teach little Sasha at home, spending up to 10 hours a day on the game. Two more daughters were similarly hot-housed. All three obliged their father by becoming world-class players. The youngest, Judith, is currently ranked 13th in the world, and is by far the best female chess player of all time. Would the experiment have succeeded with a different trio of children? If any child can be turned into a star, then a lot of time and money are being wasted worldwide on trying to pick winners. Other possible routes have been offered, though, for Igor Novikov, astrophysicist behind the 1980s theorem known as the self-consistency principle. Time travel is possible within certain boundaries. Novikov argued that any event causing a paradox would have zero probability. It would be possible, however, to affect, rather than change, historical outcomes if travelers avoided all inconsistencies. Averting the sinking of the Titanic, for example, would revoke any future imperative to stop it from sinking. It would be impossible. Saving selected passengers from the water and replacing them with realistic corpses would not be impossible, however, as the historical record would not be altered in any way.
Remember the Hindenburg? That's a phrase often heard when hydrogen is discussed. This German passenger airship, kept aloft by hydrogen, crashed in flames as it came into land at Lakehurst, New Jersey, USA in May 1937. 35 people died. Nowadays helium, wick and burn, is the gas of choice for the lighter-than-air craft. Hydrogen is highly flammable, but recent research has indicated that the airship's fabric, not hydrogen, was the culprit in the Hindenburg disaster. Properly handled, there's no reason to think hydrogen is any more dangerous as a fuel than petrol, the explosive liquid now carried safely in the tanks of untold millions of motor vehicles.
The recognition of the wealth and diversity of England's coastal archaeology has been one of the most important developments of recent years. Some elements of this enormous resource have long been known. The so-called submerged forests off the coasts of England, sometimes with clear evidence of human activity, had attracted the interest of antiquarians since at least the 18th century, but serious and systematic attention has been given to the archaeological potential of the coast only since the early 1980s.
Sachs himself is the best part of musicophilia. He richly documents his own life in the book, and reveals highly personal experiences. The photograph of him on the cover of the book, which shows him wearing headphones, eyes closed, clearly enchanted as he listens to Alfred Brendel perform Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata, makes a positive impression that is borne out by the contents of the book. Sachs' voice throughout is steady and erudite but never pontifical. He is neither self-conscious nor self-promoting. The challenge for educators and policymakers is to shape the evolution of national identity in such a way that the rights of all citizens, including school children, are respected, and the cultural, linguistic, and economic resources of the nation are maximized. To waste the resources of the nation by discouraging children from developing their mother tongues is quite simply unintelligent. From the point of view of national self-interest, a first step in providing an appropriate education for culturally and linguistically diverse children is to examine what the existing research says about the role of children's mother tongues in their educational development.
Educators are often much less aware of how quickly children can lose their ability to use their mother tongue, even in the home context. The extent and rapidity of language loss will vary according to the concentration of families from a particular linguistic group in the neighborhood. Where the mother tongue is used extensively in the community, then language loss among young children will be less. However, where language communities are not concentrated in particular neighborhoods, children can lose their ability to communicate in their mother tongue within 2-3 years of starting school.
One of the main problems posed by sand dunes is their encroachment on human habitats. Sand dunes move by different means, all of them aided by the wind. Sand dunes threaten buildings and crops in Africa, the Middle East, and China. Preventing sand dunes from overwhelming cities and agricultural areas has become a priority for the United Nations Environment Program. On the other hand, dune habitats provide niches for highly specialized plants and animals, including numerous rare and endangered species. Bricks are one of the oldest known building materials, dating back to 7000 BCE. The oldest found were sun-dried mud bricks in southern Turkey, and these would have been standard in those days. Although sun-dried mud bricks worked reasonably well, especially in moderate climates, fired bricks were found to be more resistant to harsher weather conditions, and so fired bricks are much more reliable for use in permanent buildings. Fired brick are also useful in hotter climates, as they can absorb any heat generated throughout the day, and then release it at night.
Like, share, subscribe the channel, and press the bell icon for further updates.